Welcome to Ginthi, the agentic AI platform for finance teams. Today, we're going to take a look at how Ginthi can autonomously run your reconciliations, month-end close, AR and AP processes, as well as planning, thereby saving time and cost, optimizing cash flow, increasing data integrity and visibility, and last but not the least, boosting your audit readiness. Let's dive in. So let's assume that I am the finance leader of a fictional company called ABC, right? And we're going to log in. And what you see here is the landing page for our recon module, which we're going to call match, right? And I'm the super user, but we're going to masquerade as another user. And you can see there's already a match group here. We're going to create a new match group to reconcile our sales, right? Let's call this POS Razorpay. So in essence, what we're doing here is we're reconciling our POS data with the Razorpay report and a couple of other reports, which we'll get to, right? Now, before we start configuring the fields here, let me show you a sample POS report. So this is what the POS report is going to look like. You have invoice date, order ID, bill value, right? And you have something called as order ID and parent order ID, right? And a payment ID. Now the parent order ID has been generated at the POS and the payment ID has been generated at the Razorpay end, right? And in essence, we trying to map the parent order ID of the POS report to the payment ID of the Razorpay report, right? And there's something else here called order ID. Now, it might so happen that sometimes an order could get split up into 2 or 3 tranches. An order could get fulfilled in 2 or 3 tranches, and each tranche will have its own child order ID. What Ginthi will be doing is it would essentially roll up each of these child order IDs to the parent order ID level for the recon. So let's get back to Ginthi. So we're going to import the POS file, right? Now what the AI is doing is it is narrowing down the fields that we need for the recon, right? It says that, hey, you mostly going to be needing order date, order value, parent order ID, payment ID, and mode of payment, right? And in this case, the AI is spot on. So we can start configuring. We're going to call this source as POS. The file name also starts with POS. Now, what we're going to do is as a one-time setup, we're going to drag the fields here onto the fields on Ginthi, right? So what you see here are the header columns that you saw on the Excel dump, right? And we're going to start mapping it to these fields, right? So order date goes here, order value goes to amount. Reference 1 is parent order ID, which is mapped to payment ID. So we're going to create a new reference. Payment ID is the reference 2. And in filters, we are only concerned with the mode of payment, that is Razorpay, right? So this is how we're configuring the POS. Next, we import our second source. Let's call it Razorpay. Let's say the file name starts with RP. We're going to import this file and you have your Razorpay report here. And the AI is doing the same thing. It's narrowing down the fields for mapping, right? So date is going to be this, amount is going to be this. Now there are 2 IDs here, payment ID and entity ID. Now the payment ID refers to the payments that have been done and the entity ID refers to refunds that have been processed with regards to a certain transaction, right? So for our onward payment, we're only going to look at payment ID, right? And in filters, we're going to say type equals payment. We are not looking at refunds right now. We are only looking at payment, right? But now Ginthi is asking, hey, does this file also contain refunds? We say yes. So now we have to configure the refund transactions as well, right? So once again, we look at date, we look at amount. Now reference is not payment ID, but it's entity ID, right? Which has the refund transactions. So we're going to say entity ID. Now type equals refund. We're only going to look at the refund transactions. Now this is how we've configured the Razorpay report. Now it might so happen that the company might have a wallet through which the customer could also make payments. In which case, we also have to look at the redemptions that have happened on the wallet, right? So we're going to import our third file, which is our wallet redeem file. Let's call it wallet redeem. File name starts with WR. Again, we have date, amount, reference is your parent order ID, and we can create a second reference and call it order ID, right? Does it contain refunds? No, but it might so happen that sometimes refunds could get processed to the customer's wallet directly, right? In which case, we need to look at the wallet refunds that have happened, right? Which in this case is available in this dump called wallet load, right? So we're going to import, set up our fourth file. Sorry, let's call it wallet load. File name starts with WL. So date is this. You got your amounts, got your parent order ID. You have your order ID. Now, we have to add certain filters here. Now, the wallet, the customer's wallet might contain refunds from a transaction. The wallet might also contain top-ups or cashbacks that have been put in by the marketing team with respect to that same transaction, right? But now the accounts receivable guy is not concerned with top-ups and cashbacks, right? He's only concerned with actual refunds that have been processed. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a filter firstly, and we're going to add this thing and say that I only want cash transactions. We're going to add a second filter and say that comments, right? Comments for this filter does not contain cashback or wallet referral bonus. Now, transactions which would be a cashback or a top up would usually have this as the comments, and hence we're filtering out these transactions, right? So once this has been done, now you come to the actual recon, right? Now what the AI is doing is it's taking the amounts from these different files, right? So you've got your POS amount, Razorpay amount, Razorpay refunds, you got your wallet redeem amount and your wallet load amount, right? Now the business logic is such that your Razorpay amount minus Razorpay refunds plus POS amount should net out to 0, right? But since you also have the wallets, sorry, Razorpay amount minus Razorpay refunds minus POS amount minus wallet redeem plus wallet load should net out to 0, right? So that's the logic we are sort of giving it here. Now you have variance. Now we don't want, you can set your variance limits here. We don't want any date variance, and we're going to look at amount variance from -1 to +1 to account for rounding differences. We're done with this. Now we hit run rec. Now what Ginthi has done is Ginthi has done the reconciliation where it has taken the POS data, Razorpay refunds where applicable, and wallet data where applicable, and run the recon. And you can see the summary here, right? It's reconciled about 62,858 line items on the POS, and it gives you the respective line items that it is reconciled in your different files. And all the rounding differences are shown here as reconciling items. And this can then be exported to our second module we'll get to in a minute. Now let's get back to the main group page. Now, what are we going to do with the unreconciled transactions, right? There may be certain transactions that Ginthi has not been able to catch, and these transactions have slipped through the cracks. What do we do with these? So let's go to the first group that was there, ABC customer. Now over here, again, this is just two documents. You've reconciled document A with document B, and you have your reconciliation results. It has Ginthi has reconciled 282 line items each. These are the matched items. Let's go to the unmatched item section to see if there's any unmatched transactions. And look, there are a bunch of transactions which have not been reconciled, right? Now here, you have the option to manually knock off some of these transactions, right? So you can see the source, there's either GL or SD, right? GL in this case is is ABC's own ledger, right? And SD is the supporting document, which is the customer's ledger. And you can see there are certain transactions where the date could be the same, right? But there is a slight difference in the amount, right? So, or there could be a one-day variance as well, right? So you can see here, this is 11th of December as per our ledger, but it's 12th of December as per the customer's ledger. The voucher numbers are the same. There's an amount difference as well, right? So as per our ledger, we've billed the customer 17,092.2 rupees. The customer has rounded it down to 17,090 rupees. Now we had set our materiality threshold or our variance limit as plus or minus 1 rupee, right? Whereas here you have a difference of 2.2 rupees, and hence this is sitting in the unmatched item section. But as a user, you know that for all practical purposes, these two transactions need to be reconciled. So you can manually knock them off and say, I want to match these two items, right? Similarly, you've got this transaction 8931.56 on the GL, but 8930 on your supporting document. You can manually knock off this as well. Let's look again, one more, right? 7808.29 and 7807. This is supposed to be knocked off again. And finally here you have same date, slight variance in amount, which is above that variance threshold, but also the voucher numbers are different, right? But for all practical purposes, you want to knock off these as well. So you manually match these. Now when you go back to the matched items, you can see earlier we had matched 282 pairs of items. Now with the additional 4 pairs that we have matched 286 pairs of items, right? And the items that have been matched automatically by Ginthi will show up as matched by Ginthi, and items that have been matched by the user, which in this case is Jayanta, will show up as matched by Jayanta, right? And rounding differences within that plus or minus 1 come up as reconciling items, which can be passed off as a adjusting entry in your journal, right? So this is a simple demo of how you could set up your match groups and run your reconciliations on Ginthi through the match module. Now, what the AI would be doing is it's looking at these reconciliations. It's seeing how you've configured your data sets. It is seeing how you have defined your variance limits and all the transactions that were just exceeding the variance limits. And going forward, what the AI would be doing is extracting this data by itself, right? Running the recon, producing your match results, and also exporting this to your second module called close for month-end sign off. So all of this would be happening in real time as and when the data flows in, right? So now let's go to our second module, which is close, and let's take a look at how that works, right? So the starting point for close is going to be a trial balance, and we're going to switch back to myself and add a TB, right? We're going to add a sample trial balance. Before we add the trial balance, let me show you what the sample trial balance is going to look like. Let's take a look at the Excel dump, right? So here you have a very simple, simplified sample trial balance with 3 columns: account name, account number, and balance. And all negative balances are liability accounts, and your positive balances are your asset accounts, right? So these are only balance sheet items that we're looking at. So we're going to go back to Ginthi. We're going to say add new trial balance, ABCPLTB. And we're going to start with the first month of the previous financial year, right? April 2024. So for the period ending April 2024, we're going to have to look at configuring the trial balance. And again, what the AI does is it will tell you, hey, these are the Excel headers that you must be interested in. And you can simply drag and drop it to these fields. Balance goes to GL balance. And when you click next, Ginthi has now imported the trial balance, right? You've got your account name, you got your account number, you got your GL balance, right? Which is your closing balance. You've got 2 more columns here called supporting items and reconciling items, right? Now, ideally, what your AI would be doing is capturing your data in real time, right? It could be your AR data, it could be your AP data, and it's verifying it, right? Doing the reconciliations, doing the verifications, and your supporting items would ideally match your GL balance, and your reconciling items would be 0, right? So reconciling items is nothing but your GL balance minus your supporting items, right? So over here, we have not started doing any of the reconciliations yet. Hence, supporting items is 0, and reconciling items, like I said, is A minus B. Now, in addition to AI doing all of this, you can also have your team as the preparer and approver for each of these accounts, right? Let's look at maybe a couple of accounts and see how this whole thing can be set up, right? So we're going to look at your bank account, right? So loans, liability, bank OD. This is an overdraft account. We're going to assign Jayanta as the preparer, and we're going to give him 3 days starting from 30th of April to close this, right? Let's assume that we are in May of 2024, right? So we are on May. So ideally, we want Jayanta to finish preparing this account by the 3rd of May, right? Which is T plus 3. We're going to assign an approver to this. Vishwajit will be the approver. And his clock starts ticking from 3rd of May. We're going to give him 3 days to approve this account, right? Let's take a look at another one, right? So sundry creditors MSME. This is a payables account, right? It's a creditors account, it's a payables account. So Jayanta is going to be the preparer. We're going to give him 3 days to prepare this as well. Vishwajit is the approver. We're going to give him 3 days to approve this. And let's look at one prepaid account. Yeah, prepaid license fees, right? So we're going to make Jayanta the preparer again. We're going to give only 2 days to do this because it's a very simple amortization that needs to be done and checked. Vishwajit will get 3 days from 2nd of May to do this, right? And you can assign users like this to each of your accounts. You can group your accounts and say that I want X to be my approver for all my receivables accounts and Y to be my approver for all my payables accounts, and so on and so forth, right? So over here we've got 3 pre-configured users. We've got Jayanta, we've got Vishwajit, we've got Bharat, which is myself, and we've also got Ginthi, right? So think of Ginthi as your close agent or close co-pilot, which could also automatically verify and sign off on some of these accounts, right? So you might have certain accounts which are not changing their balance month on month, right? So this could be your share capital account. You could have 0 balance accounts. You could have some dormant accounts. So Ginthi or the AI could automatically take care of these accounts for you, and the human team basically just has to focus on your AR, AP, statutory dues, inventory, and maybe bank, right? So that's the whole idea here. So we have configured 3 accounts. We're going to save this for now, right? Now, let's dive into how are these accounts actually prepared and finalized, right? So now I'm going to masquerade as Jayanta. What is Jayanta going to see when he logs in, right? So when Jayanta logs in, he will only see the trial balance accounts that he has been assigned to, right? Which in this case are these 3 accounts: your OD account, your prepaid account, and your sundry creditors MSME account, right? So Jayanta is going to start with the bank OD, and this is the main workflow window where you have some account details and summary on top, right? You can see what the opening balance is. We don't have prior period data, so that's 0 for now. You can see the GL balance is negative 22,65,000. Although it's a bank account, this is a negative balance because it's an overdraft account, right? So technically it's a liability. Now GL balance is negative 22 lakh and change. Your supporting items is 0, and reconciling items, like I said, is A minus B, right? So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to reconcile our GL, the bank ledger, with the supporting document, which in this case would be the bank statement itself, right? So let me quickly show you what these 2 documents are going to look like. So this is your bank ledger dump, right? So for the period of April 1st to April 30th, 2024, this is the source. And if you can see the format, the amount is there, the amount has been shown in two columns, right? You've got your debit entries and you've got your credit entries. Now let's look at the bank statement. Now the bank statement for the same period shows a closing balance of negative 31 lakh and change. Your GL had a closing balance of negative 22 lakh. Your bank statement is showing a different closing balance, right? So now we need to do a reconciliation to look at what transactions might have been missed out. But the problem with doing this reconciliation is that while your bank ledger had your amount shown in two columns as debit and credit, your bank statement has all the amounts in one single column, right, as amount. And it does not even say whether this is a debit entry or a credit entry, right? Although you do have a column next to it called CDFALG, which seems to denote the status, right, whether it's a debit or a credit. So this is what we've got to work with. Now let's look at how do we make this happen, right? So we're going to start adding our data here in the supporting items section, right? And you can do it in 4 different ways. You can manually add the data the way you would on an Excel spreadsheet. You can create an amortization or a depreciation calculator. You could import this from a file, or you could import this from Match, which is the first module or recon module, right? So we're going to say we're going to import this from Match. So we're going to say new group. We're back onto Match now. We're going to create a new Match group. It's not sales, it's other rec. And we're going to call this GL bank, right? Now, we're going to do the same exercise again. We're going to import our source file for GL, which is your bank ledger. And we're going to map the Excel headers to these fields. Date goes over here, right? We create a debit field. Debit goes over there. We'll create a new field. AI automatically assumes it must be the credit field. We'll map credit here. Your reference field is going to be particulars, and we're not going to use any filters here, right? Now come to the second document. This is your SD, supporting document, which in this case is your bank statement itself. So we're going to import the bank statement, the bank dump, right? Date's going to be this. Now, if you remember, the bank statement did not have a debit and credit columns. It only had a single column called amount. So we're going to change this to amount. We're going to map this here. Now, if you remember, there was a header next to amount, which denoted whether this was a debit entry or a credit entry, right? CDFALG. So we got to map this as well. So we're going to add a new field, and we're going to call it debit credit status. CDFALG goes there. Reference field will be description. We are not going to use any filters. We're going to have 0 date variance, and amount variance is going to be +1 to -1. We hit run rec, and Ginthi's done the reconciliation, right? You can see it's reconciled 420 pairs of transactions. It's captured 100% of the bank, but it's not captured the GL fully, right? So something has been, something is sitting in the unmatched items section. Let's see what it is. And here you see, on the 30th of April 2024, there is a transaction for 860,000 and change, which has been recorded on your ledger, but is not visible on the bank statement. This particular transaction is missing on the bank statement, right? So what we're going to do is, we're going to come back to matched items, and we're going to say we want to export this to close, right? So say export to close, bank OD account for period ending 30th April. We're back to close, and here you can see Ginthi has automatically filled up this section, right? So Ginthi says, as on 30th of April, my bank statement, which is my supporting item, says my closing balance is this. Is it a balance or a transaction? It's balance. It says imported from Match, and anybody who wants to see this, all they have to do is go to their, click on this, and they're taken back to the Match page where they can see the Match results, right? Which you can further export as an Excel, PDF, or a CSV, right? So now we're going to go back to close, right? So we saw this, and if you see reconciling items, Ginthi is again automatically pre-filled this section, right? So the difference was 860,000 and change, and that was also imported from match. Now what Jayanta as the user needs to do is he needs to explain the reason for this variance, right? Now he goes to type, and here you see there are certain configured reasons, right? This variance could occur due to a variety of reasons. It could be something that requires adjustment, it could be a rounding difference, it could be something that's unidentified as of now, or it could be a timing difference, right? Now Jayanta has a hunch. Let's assume he's doing this exercise on the 3rd of May. So what he does is he quickly opens the bank statement for the 1st of May, and he realizes that this transaction for 860,000 and change actually happened on May 1st, but somebody on the team had passed the entry on 30th of April, which is why it is showing up in the ledger for 30th of April. So it's a simple case of timing difference, right? And he saves this. Sorry, timing difference, right? Now you can see Ginthi has updated this section, right? So your GL balance was negative 22, supporting items is negative 31, reconciling items or difference is 860,000 and change, which should get rectified when you do the close for the subsequent period, right? And he hits prepare. He's finished preparing this account, right, with the help of Ginthi. Next, he goes to prepaid license fee. Okay. Now this is a simple case of amortization, right? Let me show you what the prepaid license fee was again on the trial balance. You can see prepaid license fee is 16,94,000 and change, right? So you can see the GL balance 16,94,000 and change. Now we're going to add a scheduled item. We're going to call it amortization. We're going to say we want this to be 16,94,223. We're going to start amortizing this from, let's say, the 1st of May, right? And we're going to look at, and this is an annual license fee, so this is going to be amortized over 12 months. We hit calculate, and here you can see that starting from May 2024, over the next 12 months, Ginthi has calculated the amortized amount and will carry forward the balance onto the balance sheet, right? So you hit apply, and you can see that it has done the required, it has prepared the calculator. Anybody who wants to see this can click on this and they see the schedule. Jayanta hits save. Now you can see your GL balance is 16 lakh and change. The supporting items here would be Ginthi's calculator or Ginthi's schedule, and supporting items is matching. There are no reconciling items. Now what Jayanta is going to do is he's going to hit prepare. Now when he does this, the AI could actually flag and say, hey, hold on, you're missing out on something, right? Now the process for this account, which can also be defined within Ginthi, right? The process says that for anything that is a fee, right, needs a receipt or a challan to be uploaded. And over here there is no challan that's uploaded, right? Because tomorrow the auditors could log in and they could say, hey, where is the challan for this? So Ginthi could say, hold on, you need to upload this, right? Let's assume that Ginthi is not been able to catch this, and Jayanta goes ahead and he prepares this, okay? It's been prepared. I will show you how there could be a manual check and how the approver could actually flag this, right? But before that, Jayanta has one more account to finish, which is his, Sundry Creditors MSME, right? Now, your payables accounts are basically something that can be reconciled, that will be reconciled in real-time basis, where the AI would be doing PO, invoice, GRN matching, and at the end of the month, you also do a balance confirmation where you ask the vendor to send his ledger, and you do a ledger-to-ledger match to make sure that everything is that both sets of documents are matching, right? So this is a month-end balance confirmation process, right? Yeah, that's one thing I missed out. So what you see here is basically activity log and process, right? So activity log is nothing but an audit trail of all the changes that are being made to a certain account for a certain time period. And process is something what the AI can define, right? Like if this is an accounts receivable account, if this is an AR account, this is how the process would be. And if this is an AP account, this would be the process, right? The reason here is to introduce a certain level of standardization to the whole, FinOps process, right? Because today Jayanta is part of the organization, tomorrow he quits, somebody else takes his place. All that the new resource has to do is, check the process, check in with the process and hit the ground running, right? So that's the whole idea behind defining processes for each of these accounts, right? So let's assume the process for this is simply you ask for the vendor's ledger, and you can also add this data manually, right? If it's not too data intensive, what you can do is you can manually look at the data. Let's look at the vendor's ledger, right? Let's look at the vendor's ledger. The closing balance as per the vendor is 650,058 and change, right? But what does our own ledger say? Our ledger says that our closing balance is 363,000 and change, right? There's a difference between Ginthi's ledger and the vendor's ledger, right? And that's what we got to try and explain over here. So first of all, Jayanta says, I want to add this data manually. And he says that as on 30th of April 2024, the closing balance as per vendor is 650,058 and change. It's balance. Now, in supporting documents, he can either add a link or he can upload the file. And in this case, he chooses to upload the vendor's ledger, right? Because tomorrow, anybody who's reviewing this account or auditing this account can directly access this ledger, right, through the account and check whatever they want to check, right? So he does this, he saves the account. Now, as you can see, there is a difference of 286,000 and change between what we think we owe the vendor versus what the vendor thinks we owe him, right? So in the reconciling item section, Jayanta is again going to say, I want to add the reason for this difference manually. Now, the way this has been designed is, now this difference could be arising because of a variety of invoices, right? There could be an invoice under dispute. There could be an invoice which needs a credit note to be attached to it. Or there could be any other reason, right? So as long as you have the granular invoice level sort of reason or breakup of this difference, you can add each of these invoices, right, as a separate line item. But right now, let's assume Jayanta does not have that data. So he's going to add the entire amount of 286,892.9 and change. And he's going to say unidentified. He does not know why this difference is occurring. But what he's going to do is he's going to leave a comment for his approver and say, please check with accounts payable team on invoices, right? It's possible that a couple of invoices have not been logged into the system, right? And that's basically what he's saying. He hits save and he's done his job. He prepares the account. Now he's done preparing all three accounts. He goes to the main page and here you can see Jayanta the preparer has prepared each of these accounts, right? Your loans liability account and sundry creditors account is in green, whereas the prepaid account is in red, right? Now this is because like I said, we are assuming that Jayanta is doing this on the 3rd of May, right? Whereas the deadline for the prepaid account was 2nd of May. So he's overshot his deadline and hence this particular date is in red, right? Now let's take a quick look at what the approver would be doing here, right? So we're going to masquerade as Vishwajit, who's the approver, right? Vishwajit also can only see these three accounts that he's been assigned to. So he clicks on loans liability bank OD and you've got your GL balance, you've got the match result, you've got the reconciling items, you've got the timing difference here of 860,769 and change. Vishwajit is satisfied with this and he hits approve, right? But before he hits approve, I'd like to draw your attention to this icon here, right? So you have a lock symbol which is actually missing in the preparer's dashboard, right, on his window. The reason for this lock symbol to appear here is once the approver approves an account, this account gets locked, right, and then nobody can go to the account and make post-dated changes to this. If you need to make a change, you need to unlock the account, and those rights could only be with the approver or with the system admin, right? So that's the whole idea of introducing this as a level of control, right? So Vishwajit hits approve. So he's done approving this. He goes to prepaid license fee, and here he sees this is the amount, and as per the amortization calculator, it's all correct, and he's okay with this. Now he should be approving, but hey, hold on. Like I said, he realizes that the license fee receipt is missing, right? So he's going to hit reject, and he's going to say, please upload license fee receipt, right? Now this goes as a notification to Jayanta, right? It goes to his window. It could also be configured to be sent to his email, and basically then Jayanta has to do the needful, which is to upload the license fee receipt and rectify it, right? So that's where you have this added level of sort of control or check with regards to this as a process, right? So Vishwajit has rejected this. Now he goes to the third account, which is your payables account, right? We did a month-end balance confirmation, and there is a difference, right? There is a difference, and it says there is a difference of 286,000 and change. His colleague has left him a comment saying, please check with AP team on invoices, right? That also appears here in a chat window, and Vishwajit can also respond to Jayanta through this chat window, right? Think of this as an internal Slack for the finance team, right? So where they can sort of correspond and collaborate through Ginthi itself. So he's okay with this. He clicks approve and goes back to the accounts section, the main page, and here you can see Vishwajit has approved the first account and the third account, but he's rejected the prepaid license fee account because the fee receipt was missing, right? This is how the preparer and approver could go about doing the month-end close process on Ginthi. And like I said, you could also give read-only access to the auditors, and they log in, and they can quickly check on each account for each close period, right? And let's assume you have an audit happening this May, and somebody wants to know what happened last April. So instead of the usual to and fro and head scratching, all the auditor has to do is log on to Ginthi, go to April of 2024, and he sees all the explanation over there, right? So this way you can do a solid month-on-month close, and then finally what happens is your March 31st, which is your year-end close, is not a special case anymore, right? March 31st is just like any other month-end close, right? And the post year-end audit nightmare that usually happens, right, between April and September can be completely avoided by diligently doing a month-on-month close process on Ginthi, right? I'll just quickly show you the dashboard. So we could have some very basic analytics with regards to the close process itself, where we can look at what are the accounts that are not being prepared, what are the accounts that are being rejected, and what are the reasons that items have accounts are having difference or reconciling items, and what is the aging report of these items, and if you do not resolve a reconciling item, it gets carried over to the next month, right, and the next month and the next month, and you can see what are the items that are not being resolved, what are your bottleneck items, and in this manner the controller can sort of zero in on the problem accounts, right, and manage those accounts. So that's the idea behind the dashboard here, right? So what you've seen so far is very simple demo of how Ginthi could do your recons and your month-end close, right, for your key accounts. In addition to that, your AI can also solve for a bunch of other AR and AP workflows, right? So assume that you have an accounts payable co-pilot, right? Let's call it an AP Copilot. What this Copilot can do is it could design your approval policies, right, for different spends that you might have on your AP side, right? And it can categorize those spends as, hey, do you want it to be a marketing spend or a capex spend or a purchase spend or a repairs and maintenance spend, right? Or some other operating spend, right? Etc. etc. And what you can also do is you can define these, you can create and define approval policies for different categories, and you can set thresholds, of approval for and low ticket items might need level 1 approval, higher ticket items might need an L2 approval, and really high ticket items might even need an L3 approval, right? And you can map these policies to vendors, and you can do that as well, right? In addition to that, what your AP Copilot could do is it can also give you vendor summaries, right? And it can tell you who are your vendors, what is their information, right? What are their bank details, and what is the kind of, if you want to add a new vendor, right, you can also do it on Ginthi, where you can add basic info for the vendor. You can define whether you want the invoice data for this vendor to be sent to match, right? In which case what happens is in real time that particular invoice from that particular vendor kind of gets reconciled against your PO or your GRN, right? You can also define whether you want to auto pay this vendor, right, or if the payment process should happen manually. So these are certain things that you can do with new vendors. What your AP Copilot will also do then is it can also then get your invoices, right? It can extract your invoice data, right? Structure them out for you on one single dashboard where you know what are your invoices that are pending approval, what are the invoices that are scheduled for payment, what are the invoices where you've already made the payment, invoices where payments have failed maybe, right? All your invoices. So you can look at you can slice and dice your dashboard in different ways, and what it can also then do is it can also then look at invoices that have come to you for approval, right? So let's say you are a user and you only look at invoices that you need to approve, right? And they get lined up over here. And how you would then go about approving them is, let's assume, so firstly, you need to approve the invoice, right? So you look at what the invoice is and you've got your invoice amount, you've got your GRN amount. If everything is fine, you can approve this invoice. If there is a difference here, right, Ginthi can bring it to your notice. You can reject here and you can inform the vendor here, right? What the AP Copilot can actually do is it could even inform the vendor by itself, right? If there is a mismatch between your invoice and GRN, it can inform the vendor by itself and say that, hey, there is a mismatch here. Why don't you please send me a credit note for this, right? And then it can track the credit note and then update it against this invoice, right? So Ginthi could do that as well. So right now, let's approve this. Once you upload an invoice, let's say you have to approve your payments, right? So then you go to transactions. And let's say you want to pay these 3 vendors, right? Biznet, Venpro, and let's look at ShopSol. Now, ShopSol, there's certain items which are in dispute, right? There's something which is in dispute. So, but he wants his payment. So what you're going to do is you're not going to pay him fully. You're going to make a part payment, and you're going to make a payment of 100,000, right? 1 lakh, confirm, right? So in this way, you can approve your invoices that you need to pay. And then Ginthi asks you, do you want to pay these invoices? You say, yes, I want to make payment. And then what happens is, if you go to your transactions, here you have a payables wallet and your receivables wallet. And you can see that Ginthi has actually facilitated the payment for these 3 vendors, right? And it made full payment to the first 2 vendors and a partial payment of 100,000 to the 3rd vendor, right? What Ginthi allows you to do is you can also set up multiple wallets, right? If you want to optimize your cash flows, you can set up a payables wallet for your purchase vendors. You could set up a capex wallet for your capex vendors, and so on and so forth, right? So there's no limit to how many wallets you can set up here and control your payment flows, right? So this is a brief sort of a look at what your AI could do on the AP side. Let's quickly take a look at the AR side as well. So if you look at AR, now again, you have your customers dashboard. These are your B2B customers, and it gives you a summary of what are your due and overdue invoices for each of these customers. It allows you to also onboard and add new customers here, right? Where you've got customer info, contact details, and there's something called as workflow here, right? Where AI will sort of help you escalate and follow up for payments, right? Follow up and escalate for payments, right? Where AI can sort of say that, hey, why don't we look at giving this vendor a certain sort of credit period and certain credit limit, and start following up with the vendor, right? And AI could also escalate it, where maybe the first follow up goes to the accounts payable guy on the customer side, right? And the second follow up could also go to him. The third follow up could go to his manager, right? So that workflow can be defined over here. And then again, you have the invoices that you have raised to your different customers, and that's the dashboard here. Your due invoices, the invoices that are that have been overdue for more than 7 days, overdue for more than 30 days, etc., right? This can be configured as well. And finally, yeah, this is the workflow window again, right? Where you need to see, hey, you can define the workflows for each of these customers in terms of follow-up and collections, right? So very quick sort of overview on how Ginthi's AI could help streamline your AR and AP workflows, right? Oh yeah, sorry, there's one more thing here where, let's say you have a customer and the customer also has a portal where he can log in and he can see what are the invoices due to ABC, right? ABC is the vendor, usually is the customer, and these are all the due invoices. And what Ginthi can do is it can also facilitate collections from this guy, right? So what he will then do is he'll say, okay, I'm going to release payment for this invoice, this invoice, this invoice, pay 360, right? And once he does that, you're basically getting reconciled payments, right? Ginthi is doing reconciled payments for you. It's automating the cash application process where it says that this invoice, you've received your payment in full. This invoice, you've received your payment in half or partially, and so on and so forth, right? And it can close the open invoices where you've received your payments. It can track invoices where payments have not been received by checking with your bank receipts, right? And escalating those issues, right? So the idea here is to give the customer a portal and enable them or facilitate them to be able to make these payments as well, right? We'll then quickly take a look at the plan module, right? So think of this as a co-pilot that can help you with your FP&A, right? Your financial planning and analysis. So what Ginthi can do is at the click of a button, because it has complete access to your trial balance, it can generate your key financial reports, right? It can generate your P&L, it can generate your balance sheet, right? It can also generate your cash flow statement, right? So it generates your key financial reports. It can do your budgeted versus actuals, right? You have your budgeted and actuals on month basis and year-to-date basis and reasons for variance, right? So you can do this entire exercise on this. You can also do your forecasting, right? So revenue planning. So let's assume ABC has 5 SKUs, right? And this is the FY22 sort of data. This is the FY23 data. And you want to look at, hey, what should be my, FY24 data be, basis my historical data, right? And you got certain growth drivers. Should this driver for SKU1 be a 3-month average or something else? You can define that, right? So in this case, you've got 3-month average for SKU1, 6-month average for SKU2, prior year growth, which is basically the same, right? The prior year growth last year was 14% for SKU2, so it's applying the same thing, right? Month-on-month growth of 1% per month for your SKU4, right? And you're putting a custom growth of 20% for your SKU5, maybe because you want to focus on pushing that, right? Now, what's happened here is when you use 6-month average as a driver, you can see that SKU2 is actually degrowing by 10%. Now, you don't want that. You have your overall forecast. You're okay with this number of 505 million, right? You're okay with this average. With the total figure as your forecast, but you're not happy with this particular forecast, right? Where Q2 is actually degrowing from 66 million to 59 million, right? So you want to change this. So you can change the growth driver and say that, hey, I want to put a custom growth of 10%, right? Now, what's happened is your overall forecast has gone up from 505 million to 518 million, right? But you want to hold this at 505 million. You also want to hold this at 73 million. So you can toggle this and say, I want to hold this, and I want to hold this back to what it was, right? So now automatically your overall growth is still 505. Your SKU 2 has still grown at 10%, but your other SKUs have gotten adjusted automatically, right? So by just fiddling with these knobs and switching your growth drivers, you can get down to an SKU level sort of planning, right, and forecasting. So this is on the revenue side. On the OPEX side again, you've got your OPEX accounts, right? So you've got your raw material 1, raw material 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, and then a bunch of other items. You've got the grouping, right? So these are your COGS, this is fulfillment, and etc., etc., etc. Again, you've got drivers, right? You're setting this budget for this particular OPEX account as a certain percentage of sale. And you can decide whether you want it to be the same as prior year or something else, right? Let's assume that you want to make a change for RM3 here, right? So you go to RM3, and here you can actually look at the breakdown at a vendor level, right? So raw material 3, you've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vendors, right, that are selling to you. You want to add a new vendor this year, right? So you say add new vendor for RM3. The vendor's name is Sai. Group is COGS. You confirm, and you're allocating. Next, you want to allocate the budget for this vendor, right? So set allocation. You want to make a custom allocation of 1 lakh, right? 1 crore or 10 million. So that's how you've added this, right? So you've added this, and this is your total budget. There is a budget overrun, right? Because what was budgeted was this, what finally got allocated was this, which means you have a budget overrun, right? And this also gives you a notification saying that there is an overrun here, right? Which you need to then get approved, right? So here you can also set your sort of budget planning. This is on the OPEX side. Similarly, you can do your CAPEX planning as well, right? So you can again look at what is the CAPEX account, what is the group, what is the useful life, what is the sort of CAPEX, what is the purchase date, and what is the in-service date, basis which Ginthi sort of creates this depreciation role for you, right? Where you can do your CAPEX planning as well, and gives you also your accumulated depreciation. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is kind of what Ginthi can do. The idea here is to use an AI layer that can come and sit alongside the rule-based core engine that we've developed. And AI would be doing a lot of the sort of autonomous handling of these processes. That sort of brings us an end to the demo. Thank you very much.